everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Shira Stone. She is the founder of the Sounding Heart Method. She is a sound healing psychotherapist. There's a lot more to you, a lot more to Shira, and the full bio will be at the end of this video and also on the podcast notes. But the question that I love asking all my guests from the very beginning, for some reason, a question that never left me: how would you introduce yourself, Shira? Who are you in this very moment?
Well, on the outer level, as you said, I'm a psychotherapist and sound healer, mom, grandma. And on the inner, I am a person who has delved deeply into healing. And I had really struggled with shame and insecurity and feeling like an outcast. And at the same time, as a child, this childhood experiences, at the same time, I had the blessings of spontaneous spiritual experiences where I felt these loving presences with me. And I also had a spontaneous visitation with a being of light that just filled me with love. So I had these very, very different experiences on both ends. And having had those experiences of love, it motivated me to do whatever it took to heal and to come to that place of really loving, because that's been my deepest desire always, has been to love unconditionally and unreservedly. And I had all these barriers around my heart of fear. And so I have spent my life working through that. And my life is about connecting the personal, the wounds from the personal, with that unconditional love and acceptance of spirit, of the divine.
What a fascinating, let's say, integration, right? Movement
Yeah.
to, is that what you call it, with an integration?
Yes. 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 And it's also my joy to help other people do the same. There's nothing that I can think of that's more important to do than to help people heal. I love it.
Ah, that's beautiful. Have you heard about A Course in Miracles?
Oh, yes. Oh,
So
yes.
that's basically that's what they really explore, the investigation, the teachings all about moving from fear to love. That really, I love that message from the Course in Miracles, that love is all there is the only expression that's real, that's true, nothing
Yes.
else.
Yes.
Does it feel to you like, I'm just kind of trying to ask the question about the integration, how, because it feels very much like it's one thing, only love is true, only God exists, only the divine really is. So can we really choose not to be? It's almost like everything is divine already as it is,
Well,
right?
look at the world. I mean, there's so much expression of not love. So what I see is that we've had trauma handed down from one generation to the next. And what happens in trauma is that it's freeze or fight or run or just fawn. So when people grow up one generation after another, people live in fear or hurt, right? And then they don't know how to access love there. So when emotions are too much to feel at the time, when there's not someone to help us process it, what we do to survive is we put those emotions in our body out of awareness. So we are like the electrical circuits that they have what's it called? The circuit breaker. So because the wires would fry if there's too much charge. And our nervous system is the same way. If we have too much charge, our nervous system can't tolerate it. So in our wisdom to survive, we've created ways to disconnect from the emotions, but they don't actually go anywhere except into our bodies. So then in traditional psychotherapy, when there's talking, talking is part of the healing, but it doesn't access the emotions in the body because the talking is in the left brain, and the emotions are in the right. The feeling. I love your podcast, the name Freedom to Feel. So that's all in the right brain. So if you talk, it can bypass the emotions, which is why people in traditional psychotherapy can go, I'm just not getting in touch. So since it's out of awareness and it's in the body, then how do we access them? And so what I have found is that it's through giving those emotions a voice that then we can hear them, and hearing with acceptance. Now that is love, right? Unconditional love is acceptance. So it's to listen to the emotions with acceptance, and it lets those emotions and aspects of us join into the rest of us, into the love. So the way I see us, it's like if you have plants and they're in the basement. The sun can be shining outside, but those plants being in the basement do not get the light. So if we bring, so that's like emotions being locked in the body. They can't access the love because they're hidden. So bringing them out into the light lets them be loved.
Gosh, that's so clear. I love the way you explain that with the metaphor, especially. Yes. So it's not enough to know that we are divine, that we are spiritual. It's we have to bring the body and mind into the journey, right? They have to kind of become, they have to agree with that truth.
Yes, because like if those places, like we learn to hide places in ourselves because we've learned that they're not acceptable, that we won't be loved if we have them. That's our interpretation, that they're not, those parts of us are not okay. So in wanting to be loved, and safe, we put them out of consciousness. So then we don't feel whole. We feel disconnected because we're fragmented. And so we're not able to let that love in. If there's parts of ourselves that we feel like that's bad, that's a bad place. And maybe we're not even aware of it. Like, let's say vulnerability, like, let's say the need to be loved. Like, I know that was something for me. I felt like, oh, I can't let myself feel this need to be loved. And so in going to those places that are afraid and listening to them with love and acceptance, they go, oh, hey, I'm okay. I'm okay. It's like this is blossoming, this opening. So, for instance, sensations are a way to get in touch with what's being locked in the body. So, for instance, I've worked with a client who had trouble expressing herself, and she felt this tension in her throat. So I encouraged her to give voice to this tension. Now, giving voice to sensations is something a person has to grow into because we have been shamed out of using our voice spontaneously. So it takes people a little time to know that they're safe to express. So she made this sound that was in her throat, and it was like this little trembling sound. And so I said to her, so what do you see with this? And she said, oh, I see myself in the classroom, and the teacher was a child, and the teacher was shaming me for having spoken up and being excited. And so that's what was hidden in her throat that was out of consciousness. So then I had her bring in the adult in her that was loving, to come and be with this child and to bring this child support. So she wouldn't have known that that fear was in there because it was out of consciousness until she heard it. And then slowly was able to, not even that slowly, she was able to start speaking up, like spontaneously, from continuing to process those feelings that are under the surface.
Yeah, that's fascinating. How doesn't matter how much I believe to be there already with my understanding that everything is divine and sacred. And although I live that out in many, many, many ways, but there are in some ways, especially in relationships, that's when it really comes out, isn't it? In relationship.
Well, I love your vulnerability. That's very precious. And yes, those places in us, particularly relationships, because relationships bring up those places in us that we're afraid to feel, like our need or our fear or we're not good enough. So then we learn to do things to distance from those feelings. Like maybe we'll be like detached, or maybe we'll be anxious, or whatever it is, to avoid that deeper feeling, that need for love. That, and it's usually a child place that maybe doesn't even have the words yet. And so being able to connect with that place with sound. So I have people make the sound and then listen to it and go, I hear you. I'm here. And then that child place just goes, oh, oh. And then the body opens up and there's just this shift that happens from that listening.
Actually, when I think about love, I think about listening too.
Yes.
They come hand in hand as a vision. They come together, and it really fascinates me too how life is very supportive of itself. It's almost I really see us as life itself, kind of doing the work. And I was just reflecting about this today. Okay, some of us are doing like beautiful work, like you're doing, the things that I'm doing. So many people, amazing people, beautiful people that I meet. But then you see some people doing some painful things, right? Some sad things. And then I wonder if they have a purpose too when it comes to the balance, in this reality on Earth. Is that to create a balance? Because we live in a dualistic reality.
Well, one way to look at life is that it's the divine getting experiences. And in that experience, as soon as God divided itself, there is this duality, and that's part of a learning experience. What I see is that people who, I mean, it does help us learn, as hard as it may be. And at the same time, it's that individual learning about how to open to love. And if there's such a deep sense of not being lovable, of not being safe, I mean, like I said, I've really walked through that deeply. It's hard to face it. So a lot of people are in reaction, is what I see. Reaction to their own pain, their own fears, their own insecurities, and they don't know how to access it to. They don't have the support to be able to let in that love. So something else I'd like to share with you is the way that the sound healing came to me. About like 40 years ago, I was doing a massage on a friend, and he said to me to try something different. So I said, okay, because I knew spiritual, unexpected would happen to me if I opened up. So as I did, these Tibetan bowl sounds poured out of my mouth, which I'd never heard of. This was like 40 years ago, before anybody was doing sound healing. And as these sounds are coming out of my mouth, which I'm going, what are these sounds? They're not human. What are they? I saw myself in a large amphitheater, ancient amphitheater. And everybody in this amphitheater was making the same tones that I was. And there was a person in the center that I was focusing these sounds to. And that's the way it was. A past life memory just went, boom, this is your path. And so I just started exploring with people. What does this do? And I was like, whoa, this is powerful. Whoa. So that's part of what I do, as well as I have a gift for being able to hear the inner sounds of a person and what the emotions are in their body. And I find that with my voice, and I also guide other people to do this, that we can't, that the sounds of spirit come through, as well as healing the emotions that are needing to be healed. There's a sound of the divine that comes through, and it helps us remember, oh yeah, through hearing the sound of it, oh yeah, that's who I am. I am more than this body. I am more than this personality. It's like wakes us up into our multidimensionality. It wakes us up so that we can feel it in our body and know it emotionally. I mean, I've had people just cry in this work, because it's like just that remembering, because we forget.
It is a forgetting. That is so true. What is it about sound, Shira, that connects us to, has this power, to connect us with divine memory, with the divine self?
Very good question. So everything is actually has a sound because everything is actually moving, even though it appears solid. So movement creates vibration, and vibration creates sound. So everything has a sound. It's just that we have a limited range of hearing. So we can't hear it all, just like we have a limited range of sight. So we can't see ultraviolet light or infrared light. We can't hear the sounds of everything. So every cell in our body has a certain frequency. And it's one way of looking at it is heart cells. What makes them different than the other cells is they have a heart cell vibration, right? And every organ and every emotion in our body, every emotion that we have also has a frequency, which is why music affects us so much. You know, some music will make us feel happy and some sad and some quiet. It's because it's actually matching those feelings and it brings it out to the surface. That's a law called entrainment, which is when two vibrations are similar, they'll end up uniting. And so, and if you think about it, like if you hear a siren, your body, what happens to your body? Like, right? I mean, it's just purely the sound. Or if you walk on the beach and you hear the ocean, it's just like, so it's resonating that experience in us.
One of the things that I have to to say about when I listen to any sounds that's they call it sacred sounds. I listen to them a lot. You have them actually on your website under shop. I want to mention here. So you call the frequencies of healing. Those are tracks that you have there. So the interesting thing when I listen to some of these frequencies, I actually can hear the silence. It's almost like listening to the silence behind all sound. You mentioned also before that you had experiences with beings, different beings from probably different realms, different worlds, and that's a lot of people, some people don't believe in that, but it's not a matter of belief because we are not the only ones here inhabiting, these realities. But you talk about three parts of healing. So feeling the feelings and then sharing the feeling. So that's the thing. For some people who wanted to try this on their own, who do they share those feelings with?
Well, it needs to be somebody who's comfortable with it. I mean, that's my whole expertise is doing that. I would say if they could potentially find somebody who's willing to listen, but part of it is creating that safety to really open up in, and that I mean, it depends on what level people are wanting to go. If people are really wanting to open their emotions, as far as I'm concerned, it's important to do it with somebody who knows how to create safety in opening those up because they're so tender and need a pacing of how much to open up. So people can make the sound of their the sensations in their body and listen to it. It just so that is powerful in itself, and it doesn't have. I'm a real believer in really that part of the healing is in relationship, right? Because we get hurt from relationships and we can get healed from relationships. So that being heard by somebody who's comfortable and able to be with the depths of feelings would be an important aspect to it. And something that I do workshops as well as individual work. And I create safe space for people to make sounds with each other. So I will have one person will make the sound of the sensations in their body. And then the other person will reflect it back to them. And it gives such a feeling of being heard beyond words. Because if you use words to do active listening, like, yeah, I understand you, there's still, I mean, it's nourishing, but there can be some interpretation of what the words mean that's not quite on. But when a person reflects back the sound, it's like, oh, I mean, I've seen people have physical healings from this, as well as emotional. And people don't know that we have the capacity to heal each other in this way. And then I also invite people to like put a person in the center and people make sounds for that person, or even one-to-one, and people at first, their reaction is, oh, I don't know what to do. I can't do that. But when they're willing to take the risk to open up, the healing that happens is profound. That the person who's receiving the healing, it's just, there's so much love when the intention is to heal that way. So we all have that capacity to heal one another. And it's phenomenal, the shifting that happens from this, from opening our voices. And plus we intuitively know what frequencies we are missing. Some people do study the voice and what the tones that are missing, but we intuitively know how to bring that healing to one another.
Yeah, I have heard about that. The frequencies, the voice, how that reflects, right? What state of consciousness we are in. So that's beautiful, though. I really see that as a vision that we'll be able to. I mean, more and more and more will come into communities. We'll heal ourselves in communities. Community, it will be the
Yes.
key of collective healing. And
Yes.
I mean, that just comes to me over and over and over as a message. It's community,
Yes.
community, community. It's not, we won't do this on our own. It's together to
Yes.
get there. And speaking of vision, what is your vision for the future of healing and spirituality too, Shira?
Well, I feel this integration of the personal with the divine is essential, because if we try to do a spiritual bypass, there's a big chunk of us left behind. So I would say that learning to really listen to ourselves, that we have so much information about who we are, about what we need, about just like how to be. There's so much information in us that we need to learn to listen to ourselves, and then we can really, our gifts can really come out. So, but an important part of that is learning to reunite with the disconnected emotions, with the fragmented self, to come back into wholeness, so that we're not afraid of listening to ourselves. And I know for myself, I'm finding just going deeper and deeper within myself and my knowingness as I do this. And I see this in my clients too. And it's from the heart, that the knowing that we have in our heart, and the capacity to love with compassion and acceptance first comes from being able to do that within ourselves. And we develop that compassion for our own woundedness and are able to be present with ourselves with love and compassion, then we can do that for other people, right? So that's what I see as a need to really integrate all of us, that we can't disconnect. It doesn't work to disconnect from our shadow sides, those parts of ourselves that we are afraid to know. Like once we get to know them, it's like, they're human, so what, But it's like when they're disconnected, they like are really scary.
Right, because they feel distant, yeah, like an entity, something that comes to scare us, right? But then if we see that as one, and that's the thing about this beautiful spiritual vision of seeing God everywhere, or the understanding that there's just God, only the divine exists. There's nothing but the divine.
Right.
So what would you be afraid of if everything is you in the first place? Well, easier said than done, because that can become a spiritual bypassing too, right? Just the intellectual understanding. But it's the practice that fascinates me, this unfolding of what it's like to embody that truth, that everything
Yes.
is sacred and divine, or everything is happening in the divine, which there's no way everything's saturated with divinity.
Yeah, well, it like, for instance, like anger is a feeling that a lot of people are afraid of. I know I've been afraid of it myself. And that's like, can be a shadow side. But coming to know it, when it's integrated in, when there's a communication there and the discovery of the wound that has created the anger, then it just becomes power to create shifts when it's held in the heart, right? So that's like in getting to know it and to befriend it through listening to it and listening to, like I said, the pain of what's there that makes a person react, to listen, and then the power can be in the heart to be used as as power that's not reacting anymore. So that's like when we stop being scary to ourselves, is when we're able to really befriend through listening those and through the listening, and then bringing in the part of ourself that loves to be with that place. And then there's that love of all parts that comes from the inside, because all parts of us are so beautiful, really. Every single aspect, the vulnerability is so beautiful. That need to love that we all have is so beautiful. And we're like, that beauty that we are and that magnificence that we are really comes out through being able to listen and reunite with ourselves. And then that unity that the divine is, we're able to experience it more fully.
I mean, in my understanding, it keeps coming that way. It's a shift in the way we see reality. If we come from a place of sacredness ourselves, then we tend to see everything else as sacred. Even but it might not be beautiful in the from the mind's eyes, but it's sacred, and it's something to listen to, as you said, to respond to, and not to react. And it's not a problem to be fixed.
Yes, when we can listen to those ourselves with acceptance, like, oh, I hear you, and I'm right here with you. I'm here with you right where you are, right there. It's like the pain and the wounds just go, oh, I'm loved. And it's a process, right? It's a process. There's various levels of us, but it's and then to infuse us with that sound of love. Like what I do with people is we'll do this deep work, and then I'll end with making sounds of that are of love, of acceptance, of nurturing, and it just lets people feel what it feels like to truly love themselves. It's on this visceral body level experience, and people often cry like, oh, I feel love for myself.
So one of the guided questions, I had another spontaneous question, but then I have to look at my notes. What's the difference between what you do, like the sound heart method, and a sound bath?
So the sound baths are wonderful, and they like infuse people with vibrations that are healing. The difference is that mine is focused on the therapeutic, on what a specific person needs at that moment to heal emotionally, to heal trauma and depression and anxiety. So what I do is focused on how do we use the sound to heal those traumatized, hurt, wounded places in us. And then what sounds bring can help shift that.
Would you say that's more, that's deeper? Is that the word that you would use? It's more intentional. I think what comes to mind is intentional.
And focused on healing the mental health. Yeah, it's like specific, and working with those emotions that are out of awareness in the body.
Yeah, what a beautiful thing, because that goes back to silence again, because that's how the body is very silent, but it's doing so much, right? It's making a lot of sounds, but in a very quiet way. But I have done some Reiki massage too that had it kind of, yeah, that was pretty powerful. So massage is very powerful, though. You have done the body work. I
Yeah.
remember having one done in New York, and I was like crying. I mean, beyond measure, just crying, crying. I started crying for no reason. I mean, I had no reason to cry in that moment, but the body was crying, and I was wondering why it was crying. Of course, I had an idea because of the abuse as a child, but it's fascinating how it can be activated that way.
Yes. Well, I love your vulnerability, your sweet vulnerability in saying that. And it's true what you said. I mean, yes, the body is the way to access emotions. Like it's because that's where they live. You know, it's like if a person has tension, they can end up with an ulcer, or I mean, or a headache. It's like our emotions do go in our body, and when you go into the body, it does release them. And what you were saying about that feeling about, oh, that resistance, like I don't want to go there, that is a sign that there's emotions in there that are scary to connect with, and to be so gentle and tender and honoring in connecting in with those places. Like that's something that's important, is to approach them with such care and kindness, and to listen to what is this place in me, this child, what is it ready to open up to? How much? And so to really, it's like need to be really respectful, and then that wounded place also gets to experience that honoring, of not being forced, to being listened to, of being respected. Like, okay, you can only go this far. That is beautiful, and so to open it up very gently and kindly.
Oh, I love the invitation. I'm in Florida. The United States is a big country, and all over the world. There are people all over the world that watch these interviews. So, what is the best way to do it in person? I mean, the body work, it seems like an in person, but you do this, it's sounding heart. Is that something that you offer online too?
Yes, I offer it both online and in person. And in the near future, I'm going to have some workshops online, and then eventually I will do a another retreat in person. So it can be both ways, either the Zoom programs, or people can work with me one on one on Zoom as well as in person. Yeah.
And the effectiveness, would you say, is the same, Shira, when it comes to the sound?
It's still, in person is, I think, always better, but people still really heal on Zoom too. The frequencies carry. So if a person is not going to be able to be in person, then it still can be very powerful to do the Zoom. Yeah.
That would be amazing to have. Are you contemplating the idea of having facilitators throughout the United States and the world? That would be amazing to have.
Yeah. And I'm writing a book, by the way, that's in process to explain my method.
So that can become a
Yeah,
practice that other professions can adopt.
exactly. Exactly. I very much want to teach it. Yes.
Oh, I love that. Gosh, what a beautiful vision, right? Yeah, that we can heal so much faster in the future. It will be,
Yes.
it won't take that long because there are so many. I mean, I see that already. So many modalities, and I meet so many amazing people with different, bringing their gifts, into this reality
Yes.
for healing. So thank you so much, Shira, for doing that again. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. My absolute pleasure. It brings me such joy. I love watching my clients blossom in front of me. It just fills my heart with joy.
Gosh, I can see that. I can see that in the way you speak about it.
Like some people say to me, "Isn't it hard for you to do the work that you do, being a therapist?" I'm like, "No, I love watching people like come in, not, feeling depressed and anxious, or, having areas of their life that aren't working, and then get to blossom and discover their beauty and become friends with themselves, and being able to listen to themselves and be kind to themselves, and be, just discovering their own beauty. It's like, I love it."
It sounds like a divine calling it is
Yes.
for you. And
Yes.
some people they call it purpose, mission. Is that the same thing when we find our purpose, or somewhat different?
The purpose and a mission,
Yeah,
I,
of
it's
life.
not,
Yeah, yeah.
I guess they're the same.
We talk a lot about purpose, finding purpose, and the calling for this life. The reason to be here. And some people have no clue, no idea what that is. So, what is your suggestion? What would you say to those who have not yet contemplated the idea of found their own purpose, or contemplated even the question of asking that question? What is my purpose?
The It has to do with being able to listen to oneself. So to do the inner work of opening up to oneself and learning how to listen to ourselves. Like, we're used to discounting ourselves. We've been really invalidated. I shouldn't be this way. I should be that way. I should be another way. This part of me isn't right. That part of me isn't right. And so we learn to cut off and distort and shift who we are and live by, other people are saying what we should be, or, like that shutting down. But in opening up to who we truly are and learning to listen within to who we are and what we want, we will find our path. But it does take that inner listening, learning to listen within to like those places where we discount ourselves or invalidate ourselves. I shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't be that way. To say, well, how can I bring acceptance to myself? How can I listen to myself? And it's that listening and discovering that lets us then open to what our direction is, what our path is, what's calling us. It's because we get called, we just can discount it. Like, that's, I shouldn't do that. That doesn't make sense. It's not realistic, or whatever the reasons are, that we will discount and second guess ourselves.
And then would you say that one of the elements to kind of tapping, going further into that beautiful journey of answering the call and living the purpose, would you say courage?
Oh, yeah, definitely the courage to listen. I'll tell you, for myself, it's been really hard. It was really hard to do what I do. There were times when I first started doing this, I got the calling to speak in front of people, and I used to be so scared. My voice used to shake when I would get in front of people, but I would kept doing it because I felt it was my calling. And then doing things that at first people were like, what? That doesn't, what? So long ago. So, it's like, yeah, to have the courage to keep doing it anyway, to listen to what's calling a person inside, and the courage to do it. Like you're doing this wonderful show, letting so many people share their gifts. So that, I would sure guess, took courage to follow your inner guidance, right? You had a sense about, I want to do this. And then comes the doubts. Oh, well, what if this? What if that? What if people don't want to listen? What if that? So those doubts can be so loud, and that inner voice that guides us tends to talk softly. But if we listen to it, we will be right where we are. So you've done that too. Thank you for listening, and thank you for creating the space for me to share what I would like to share too, and other people. Yes.
I think when we realize that we are doing something in the name of something bigger than us, and
Yeah.
perhaps bigger than the body mind, and not fundamentally what we are. We are already there, that greatness, that infinite, limitless. But it's that really gives me the, not just the courage, but the motivation, kind of to, and the energy to keep doing this, because it's not. I know it is not just for this; it's for everything and everyone. So it's something that to me is very important. That my body mind doesn't do something that just benefits itself. It has to have this ripple effect of
Beautiful.
somehow impacting, benefiting others. I think that motivates me more than anything else, Shira. I have to say.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, me too.
We need more
That's not
people like
mine.
you in the world.
No, it's not mine. It's universal, isn't it? It's not even personal.
Yes.
That I feel that way, like with you and so many people that I meet, that they are doing this in the name of a universal truth. That's just, we are working together because it's almost like we have this divine responsibility to
Yes.
support life itself. Not just ourselves as body, minds, but also our natural world, the environment.
Yes.
So I heard that from somebody recently. She's from Israel. She's in Israel, but she said God needs our help. That, with all the violence there and all the war and all that, she's a healer too. And she said that I never heard that before. In a sense, the divine needs our help. It's not that we need God's help; that God needs our help.
Oh,
I mean, that
yes.
I never heard it that way before, but it resonated with me, Shira.
So I see us as, that we're expressions of the divine. And we all have that choice about how do we express. And so the more we can resonate with love, the more we are allowing God to express its beauty through us. And another thought that just came with me to share is, the angels sing their praises of the divine, and singing and using our voices together is such a way of just letting out the joy and letting out the love. And when we do it, like ancient people used to put their voices together in ceremonies, because one, it unites the group, and then it lets people shift into greater consciousness. So when we put our voices together, we really can open up our hearts to the harmonies that are just part of life, part of the beauty that's always there, always. And so it's lifting our voices together, and that lets us feel that and know that. And
Right. I love how you always go back to love. The sound of love, the flavor of love, the perfume of love.
yes. Well, my deepest desire of all, like I said, is to love unconditionally, unreservedly. And that's where our joy is. That's where our salvation is. So it's my desire for myself and to help everybody that is open to it, to just love. That's what we need so much, as you're saying. Just we need to open our hearts and um, learn to love ourselves too. As we learn to love ourselves, we can also spread that love even deeper.
Right, right. We're almost at the end. I want to mention your website, and I want to make a comment about that. So, thesoundingheart.com, it will be clickable on the podcast notes. Um, Going back to the what you said about love and loving ourselves, um, gosh, a lot of that, it's very clear to me, like in your case, in so many people that I meet, in my own case too, that we have had some mystical experiences, spiritual experiences, and that's why we know this to be true. It's
Yes.
not just that we heard, that we read somewhere. It's something that we know. I see what everything that you're saying is not just a doing; it's a teaching. It's something it's very much sounds like a teaching. When you speak, sounds like a song to me.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's a song.
I love that.
Can't help it. So I think that song really helps, with other people when they listen to it, because it helped me. I remember um, just listening to people like you, and it felt like this song, this beautiful song from nature itself, that
Hmm.
awakened something in me.
Like you said, when we come together in community and our hearts get to be opened, like for me, using the sound, the way that I guide people in just opens their hearts to each other so beautifully. But whatever method we use to come together and open our hearts together vulnerably, as of their whole self, it really, that's where God is. God got us. It's in that ability to open our heart and connect.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Beautifully said too. Gosh, I could talk to you forever about these things. There'll be a long song, a very long one. Why not?
By the way, if people go to my website, if they want to subscribe, I have a newsletter that will give information about workshops I'm going to be doing.
Wonderful. Yes. So I do have here, you do, so you also offer private sessions,
Yes,
right?
I do.
Sure, I
Private,
have
yeah.
them here too. Yes. So everything in the website, I'll have that listed here. They'll be clickable. Is there anything that you left unsaid for today's conversation, Shira?
I would say that each and every person is worth knowing, is worth loving, is worth the time and the effort and the energy to really to go inside and to invest in working with someone, because again, it's in relationship that we can heal. There's things that are just too hard to see in ourselves or out of awareness, so that every person is worth their loving, is worth them taking that investment into themselves and learning to love themselves, because each and every one of us is so beautiful, so beautiful. And so it makes life rich and beautiful to discover that.
That's meaningful to me. So we'll be in touch again. And I want to thank you again for your work. And I would love to have you somehow one day. Maybe we meet somewhere and then we work together. That's
I
my
love
vision.
it.
I can't help. I can wait for that to happen one day. Just meet the people that I meet here online, meet them in person as well.
Yes, yes, that would
So
be
take
lovely.
good care, Sharon. We'll talk soon. We'll be in touch again. Bye for now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.